Now we ride the Bryan Callen Show. If you guys are into extreme mountain climbing, if you're into crossing the Arctic and Antarctic landmass alone or unassisted, I got Ryan Waters here, author of An American's Grand Slam. I'm going to read your biography here. This is great. Ryan Waters is a professional mountaineer, mountain guide, and polar adventurer. A polar adventurer. During 2 decades of hard expeditions around the planet, his experiences include the first unsupported and unassisted crossing of the Antarctic landmass, being on a hijacked airplane in Russia, rescue of injured climbers in the Karakoram Himalaya of Pakistan, the Everest base camp earthquake disaster, narrowly avoiding the 2008 K2 tragedy, near misses with avalanches, the deaths of close climbing partners, close encounters with polar bears on the Arctic Ocean, relationships with fellow adventurers, and much more. Ryan Waters, welcome to the mother of all podcasts.
Thank you.
I've been trying to get you on this podcast for a long time.
Yeah.
The book is wild. Can you explain what an American Grand Slam is?
It's like the Grand Slam is just this adventure kind of thing people have started to do where you climb the highest peak on each continent, 7 summits, and then you also have to ski to the poles, the North and South poles. So the version I did is what's called the True Adventures Grand Slam. So skiing from coast to the pole. So often called a full length trip instead of a shorter one that's more common now.
Yeah.
And so I became the first American to do it that way, unsupported, which means no resupplies, no assistance of any kind to ski.
So when you're crossing and it's 48 below in the spring and there are polar bears everywhere and you have to go to sleep and you have to mount a shotgun at the vestibule of your tent because, there's nothing more that keeps you safer than a paper-thin sheet of nylon.
Yes.
From a 1,100-pound white wild dog that likes human flesh.
Yeah.
So great. That's so smart.
It's really smart.
Yeah, it's very smart.
Yeah.
What are you, first of all, bringing to eat? What do you eat on a daily basis?
My God. Well, the problem is it's very monotonous. Like on that trip, it's all about weight versus calories because you burn you're burning 6,000 to 7,000 calories a day when you're skiing to the North Pole expedition. Damn. So you never have enough food. Never. It's like you're always on a deficit. So you try to gain a lot of weight before and then have a lot of food that's high calorie but lightweight. And
like what, peanut butter?
Well, it's all like pre-packaged. Everything's weighed out and very specific. So dinners are like the freeze-dried meals. And so you eat those for 50 plus days every night. And
so you're out there for how long when you're skiing the South and North Pole?
It's a full length trip's a little over 50 days. So it took me and my partner 53 days to ski from Canada to the North Pole, and that it's about the same on the South Pole from the
a month and 20 days.
Yeah. But that's I actually did a longer trip in Antarctica with my partner when we skied across, and that was 70 days.
70 days.
Yeah, 1,200 miles.
And so you have to bring enough food and water.
Yeah, not water because we melt. Snow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But you have to melt the snow.
Yeah,
and you have to bring fuel. You have to have a Bunsen burner. And then what kind of sleeping bag? I'm fat. I can't get enough of this shit. It's wool and it's down.
Wool and down. Yeah. No, you take these really good MSR stoves. They burn white gas, and so that's one of the heaviest things you actually have to take. You have to have enough fuel, and you just calculate out the amount of days, and it's kind of a known equation that we all know. And
how many calories a day are you taking in?
5,000 or more.
Can't you hunt?
No.
Why?
You couldn't rely on it. I mean, definitely not in Antarctica because down in the South Pole, all the wildlife is way out on the edges. There's nothing on the interior.
Nothing.
Nothing. So in the North Pole, there are animals, but you're actually hoping to not see any because most likely is a polar bear. And so, the only other thing is seals. There have been people that have done super epic trips long ago that like had to survive for a long time and literally eat penguins and seals and stuff. But that's something you don't want to end up doing.
Yeah, because you got to cook them. You need a big fire for a seal.
Yeah.
Or you eat you would eat the seal raw.
I don't know what you do.
Inuit
Thankfully,
style.
I've never had to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like that would be the smartest thing.
What's
going on your mic? A little tighter. Got to tighten up on the mic.
So tight.
We call that tightening up on the mic. So you let's go into, like, before we get into it, I was thinking about like what it's like to live this extreme life, and you're climbing mountains where a lot of times people don't survive, right? And you're taking real risk, and it's also profoundly uncomfortable because you spend most of your time cold and hungry. Okay?
Yep.
Why? What do you think it is about your personality and your upbringing without even going into psychology?
Right.
What do you think it is, man?
It's just the climbing. Really, climbing is my main thing. The polar stuff was secondary in my career. But just mountaineering, it's weirdly addictive. And you, once you climb a mountain, a lot of people, the tendency is to be suffering a little bit on the trip, but ironically, just after, most people are like, I can't wait to do the next one. God. And so they're I just literally flew back from Mexico 2 days ago or yesterday, with 3 clients, and we climbed 2 big volcanoes, about 18,000 foot mountains. And, they were having a hard time, but summited, and then they were already looking up the next mountains as we were driving to Mexico City to fly back. So
it's so weird.
Yeah.
Like it hurts so good.
Yeah. I say mountaineers have a very short memory.
I wonder, though, do you think that it's because you have to get, to an extent, into some kind of flow state where total focus is everything? Is that, do you think that?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's because everything else is drowned out when you're on a hard climb.
Yeah.
You're really focused on what you're doing, and you don't think about anything in the real world. And, and it's just the adventure and the amazing locations you get to see, and then also the travel's kind of addictive because all these a lot of the mountains are in just really cool, weird places, that you get to go travel to. So,
I would imagine that, like, if you're in, like, I don't know where it would be, Kathmandu.
Yeah.
You're in some bar in the middle of nowhere, and that kind of stuff is
it's fun.
Being a stranger in a strange land, and the anonymity must be.
Ironically, like, I fly to Kathmandu on the end of this month for Everest to guide, and
you're guiding Everest.
Yeah.
You're taking people up to the top of Everest. How many times have you done that?
6 times.
You climbed to the top of Everest 6 times.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but
and by the way, every time you climb, you could die.
I guess so.
And but when you climb, without getting into, out of respect, but you pass dead bodies, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you see them?
Yeah. It's not. I always tell people, like, just in general, you hear the 2 things, there's trash everywhere and there's dead bodies everywhere, which both are not true.
Right.
It's more like that's mainstream media reporting. Right. But yes, you do on the Nepal route, you see like 2 people right now.
Why can't we get them down?
You could. It just there's 2 things that the families, I think, of those 2 climbers have asked that they stay there for some unknown reason. But you can get them. You just have to pay people to go retrieve the bodies. And,
I see.
Yeah. So usually that's
expensive.
Sherpas, and they have to, hire 6 of them because it's hard work to get them from that high. Yeah. And so,
but also there is something kind of beautiful about
leaving
it's somebody there.
It's kind of strange though. Like one guy's an American guy that is. You've heard of the Hillary Step? It's like the last kind of
heard it.
Yeah.
Stepped it.
Stepped it.
No.
It's like this last steep kind of obstacle to get to the summit. And there's an American guy a few years ago that unfortunately died there right at the base of it. And he's still tied into the ropes.
Damn.
And so you have to step around him on the way. What? And I've only heard, and ironically, I just met him like 5 days before that at base camp. And I was like, oh, hey, meeting him and stuff. and I think his family apparently said to just leave him there. But most climbers are thinking the same thing, like they should cut him free and just let him go down the side and be at least at peace and not having people kind of stepping around him.
Is that him right there?
Yeah, that's the guy right there.
Damn, dude. What in the world?
Yeah, you have to kind of...
It looks like such a crowded place, Everest, now.
It's not. A lot of those pictures are misconceiving as well. It's like if you get weather windows that don't happen often and then one does come, a lot of people go at the same time just to the summit. So sometimes you get these looking like a line picture on the summit day, but it's not really as bad as it's
not like a giant traffic jam.
Yeah. But sometimes you got to bob and weave around people.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I wonder, do you think there's a through line with people that actually choose to do this?
It's changing a lot. Maybe the personalities are the same. I've been climbing like 20 years, and more now you see, at least I see as a guide in the Himalayas and stuff, there's a lot of people, it's become very popular in a international sense. So you see a lot of climbers that want to come, and for whatever their reason is, whether it's, standing on the summit or the adventure, or, with social media, you see a lot of people, it seems like, doing it more for that.
Yeah.
So
why do people end up dying like that? Is that they just freeze to death? They can't get down?
Yeah, it's usually, we just say exposure, like to the elements. Usually it's because they've climbed, expended all their energy for whatever reason, and their guide or whoever they're with didn't say, hey, you should turn around in time. And so, when they turn around, maybe they don't have enough stuff left in them to get down, and then they don't.
Isn't this why you should bring food?
Yeah, well, food and the people you're climbing with is really important. Yeah. Like if I'm guiding, we have a big staff of people climbing with our clients, and so we're watching them all the time and seeing how they're doing and making mental notes about, this is how far we have to get to the summit. Are they still going to have energy to get down?
And a lot of it's because it's just really hard to acclimate to that kind of altitude, no matter what you do, right?
Yeah. But in theory, the schedule is made so that people do acclimate correctly. So that's
the hardest peak to climb, most dangerous, is K2.
There's like different theories on that, just from a standpoint of, if you look just at like percentages, say number of climbers versus how many accidents or deaths, it's up there with maybe Annapurna or another mountain called Dhaulagiri in Nepal. But yeah, it's a dangerous peak for sure, K2. It's mostly because the weather's a little bit more challenging than Nepal, and the route's steep the whole way, as opposed to Everest, where you get a lot of kind of steep parts, but then mellow sections.
You see no wildlife when you're that high up, right? No mountain goats?
No mountain goats.
Nothing lives that high?
Only nothing really. You see some yaks and things that
high?
No, down at the base camp. But they're mostly just walking in and out.
How about birds?
Birds you see at base camp, yeah.
No, I'm saying, but way up there.
No.
Nothing.
They don't fly that high, no.
Only men.
Only silly people.
Mostly white men. There's something about white guy culture where it's like, it's up there, I got to get up there.
That's right.
It's the moon. It's like, I'm tired of this. It's like Elon Musk is like, I'm tired of Earth. I want to go to Mars.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
Well, ironically, it's changing, though, with that international interest. I mean, you see a lot of Middle Eastern, a lot of
I'm sure. I'm
Asians,
kidding. I'm kidding. But it's like, it started with the British. But
it's true.
Do you think that you as a person, do you ever feel like you're addicted to this? Because you and I were kind of talking about how if I take a month off of being on stage, I start to die.
Yeah.
And I have that addiction, and it's also a love-hate thing.
Yes.
Does it become hard to be a civilian? Like, do you have kids, wife? You don't have any of that. And it's probably difficult because you're always kind of risking your life.
Yeah.
Will you ever retire? Does it scare you to think about retiring?
No, it's just that you do get a little, like we were talking earlier, you get a little bit over the travel and the kind of grind of always being out on the road. So I personally just am slowly stepping back from being on trips as much. And I have because I own a guide service, so I have guides that work for us that can do trips. And luckily
What's the name of your guide service?
Mountain Professionals.
Mountain Professionals. If you want to climb, Mountain Professionals.
There you go. But I can kind of pick and choose, and then, be in the office for a month and do all the stuff that needs to be done. But then I get antsy and want to go get the challenge. And
but when you say challenge, is the challenge just to be out there alone climbing, or is the challenge to do something dangerous and painful?
I think it's just to be out there in the mountains.
Yeah.
And be.
So you get the same thrill climbing Mount Whitney as you would climbing K2?
Well, maybe not quite as much, but there is still. I was going to say earlier, like when for example, landing in Kathmandu, it used to be, and it still is. It's a magical place. It's cool to be there and all that. But when I land there now, it doesn't feel exotic anymore.
Yeah,
it's like I know it. I'm just like, okay, I'm here to work, and I got to go over to the office and meet my guys, and you just kind of like land and start doing stuff. Whereas when you're first getting into it, it's you're taking in all this culture and the Sherpas and all that stuff, and it's still cool to me to be there, but it's not. It's more normal. It's
work.
Yeah,
right.
Work.
Like the first time on a porn set, it's like, damn, this is crazy. After your 500th time, you're like, just another day of fucking.
Exactly.
That's what's so weird about you. Do live an extreme lifestyle. Like it's like I'm not going to compare it to stand up, but stand up is weird. It's a weird way to make your living. Like it's different,
Yeah.
But I mean, mountaineering. I've only met one other mountaineer, like some famous guy, who climbs. I met him. He kind of recognized. It was weird. He was from another country, Switzerland or something, and he was like something about the movie I'd done. And I was like, I saw him later on in some movies, but he just looked a certain way.
Right.
And I was like, what are you doing? I climb mountains, I was like, that's
they have a little weird look in their eyes.
It's a very weird. You almost talk like an athlete does.
Yeah.
Because athletes don't really know how to articulate necessarily what it is that they do.
I know.
You're kind of like, I can see why you're good at it because you're stoic.
Well, that a lot of people that focus on that, or maybe they have more like canned answers. I do it because of this.
Yeah.
And it's one of the greatest questions that, especially if I do speaking engagements and show like the North Pole expedition, which is so hard. It's the hardest trip I've ever done. And people always ask, like, what motivates you to get up every day? And for a long time, I've had the hardest. There's no questions. Like certain answer.
I hate those fucking dumb questions. You know what they're trying to do? They're trying to glean. They're trying to get a guy who does crazy shit, like
what's
crossing
the secret answer.
They just want some of your mojo. And it's like, listen, dude, you either cross the Arctic with polar bears because you're crazy, or you don't. Like, you're not going to get any of that. There's nothing. You're not going to tell me anything, some nugget of why you do it, and then I'm going to take it and put it into my quiver, and I'll be able to shoot that arrow when I need it. This is what we live in now.
Yeah.
This whole world's like I was doing some meditation, and this successful guy goes, "Do you find did it increase your productivity?" I'm like, "That's not why you meditate, dude." And I don't know if it does, and I'm a bad meditator anyway, so I'm the wrong guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like everything about our culture, I feel, is all about sort of apathetic. It's like it's got to always turn back to us.
Yeah.
And what I like about the book, or what I like about talking to a guy like you, is you do something I have no idea. I mean, I don't even understand it. It's just insane to me, and I love talking to extreme people. So I'm not trying to become that. I'm just trying to kind of like maybe I just enjoy the stories. Sometimes you can just enjoy the stories. In a way, I'm kind of like asking you all these psychological questions, but it doesn't have to be like that. The cool stuff is just about like you were being followed. Tell a story about how you were basically like tell us when it was during the day, your state of mind, your state of physical being, and then you turned around.
The polar bears?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, me and my partner, Eric Larson, we were out there for about a week on the Arctic Ocean. We could almost still see the land, Canada, because we hadn't been skiing very far. It's very rough surface at the beginning, like a lot of pressure ridges where the ice is just piling up. And
you're cross country skiing?
Yeah, but we're pulling sleds with all of our gear, and each of our sleds was 320 pounds. So we had, at that point, they were too heavy to get over the rough surface. So we would both clip into one and pull it forward about.
Is that you?
It's a pressure ridge.
Yeah, it's a pressure ridge there. So we would pull one sled forward for, say, 20 minutes and then come back, get the other one, both clip in, pull that one forward. And then we just leapfrog all day.
So how much ground are you covering?
Not much.
Like a mile a day?
Yeah, like at the beginning, I would have to look back at my notes, but yeah, the first week we would maybe get like 2 miles a day. And it's, 480-mile trip. So it starts to get on your mental. It's hard.
Yeah.
But we were both clipped into one sled pulling it forward on that day. It was like midday and we're, of course already tired and starting to get beat up. And we were pulling it forward and we just decided, okay, let's stop here, go back, get the other one. So we unclipped the rope from each of our harnesses. And right when we turned around, there was 2 bears walking in our track and they were probably 30 feet away and they'd been walking behind us. We didn't know it for that whole time. So they
were sneaking up on you.
They were just
they were probably
trailing
trying
us.
to figure out what you were.
Yeah, they're just trying to figure out are you food or what is this thing out here? So we always would ski with these flares in our pockets, and that's like the first line of defense. Just main thing is you scare them away if you can. So we trying to screw on this flare onto a tiny pen flare.
You're not even fucking ready, dude?
No, because you can't have them pre-screwed on. So it's like
I'd have a fucking shotgun at all times, but keep going.
Yeah. So I, of course I like cross thread mine because I'm like, holy shit, they're like walking right at us. Eric gets his on, he shoots it off, but it's just a little like, and it just kind of stopped. It was a huge mother bear and like a teenage bear. And so she stopped for a second and then kept walking and I got mine on and I shot mine and stopped her again. And that was enough time. And the funny thing is the teenage bear, the kid, just kept walking at us. Like it didn't know what to do. It was never seen people like that before. So that was enough time then Eric was able to reach into the sled and pull out the shotgun. And then the first round is a bear scare. So you shoot it and it just boom, explodes right in front of them. And that was enough to finally scare them away. But
they ran off.
Yeah. But the biggest thing was it was total chance that we had the sled with the gun in it. Because if we would have been pulling the other sled, I wouldn't be talking to you today. So it was like a 50-50 luck chance.
Yeah, let's always have the fucking
well, we did
gun
after that.
next to us, dude. Like, how are you? Don't be all casual with polar bears.
Well,
you're gonna die.
The problem is normally out there, you see them coming in. They do big circles, like
they do?
Casually around because they're trying to figure out whatever this thing is. Like they're smelling the air and smelling you. So you typically have time to scare them away.
Yeah,
on that scenario,
typically till you don't.
Yeah, so that was pretty scary. And then we definitely always skied with the gun on us the rest of the time.
Is that the only time you've seen polar bears?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Did you do any research? Are the males more aggressive than the females? Or
I don't think it matters.
You're just food.
Yeah, we're just food. But it's but the problem is because typically in the past you would only really possibly see them early on when you're close to the land. But as you get further away towards the North Pole, there used to be less open water, like those leads that open up. And that's what the polar bears they hang around the water because they need to hunt seals. So as the climate's changed so much up there that there's more open water farther north. So when we are close to the North Pole, we're expecting, we're not going to see any more polar bears, no problem. And in fact, we almost ditched the gun when we were that far north. Luckily, we didn't.
What do you mean ditch the gun?
Well, just because weight is everything.
Well, no, you don't ditch the gun, dude. You never ditch the gun.
Well, you
die holding onto the gun. If you have to ditch your coat, you don't ditch the gun.
Right. We definitely had a long talk about it, and we decided, we'll just keep it for a little while longer. But luckily, because we saw like these massive polar bear tracks when we were about 4 days away from the North Pole.
Yeah.
So
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
It was a good thing that we had it still.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also here's the other reason you don't ditch it. You got to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Don't you? Now, when you sleep in a tent and there are massive polar bears who are hungry.
Yeah.
And you know that they will kill you. They will eat you the way a saltwater crocodile will eat you. Your food. They don't distinguish between a human and a caribou.
Right.
Or a seal. Or a beluga whale. Like, how do you set things up so that you can actually wake up in time? Because you had a friend, you said, who was sleeping in their tent, and the polar bear jumped on the tent like that. And people have died that way.
Yeah. The simple answer is you're so tired, you kind of don't care. You just have to go sleep and hope for the best.
Great.
But
cool.
That's not much of a defense.
So you go to sleep and you hope for the best, dude. But they've got to be able to. I guess the nylon and the weirdness has got to keep them somewhat at bay.
Yeah, they're just investigating what the heck this big red thing is out on the white surface.
Yeah.
And so, there are things called bear fences, which is just like a very thin wire that you can put around your tent, and it has flares in the corners. So if one walks through it, it shoots a flare up and it scares them. But on that expedition, you can't take them because it's just too much work to set up every night, and it's not worth the time because every moment counts out on that expedition. So we just set up our sleds and our skis kind of in the snow around the tent, and you hope that if one comes in at night, that it's going to like trip over skis and you'll hear it coming.
You're a polar bear. This is the worst polar bear defense plan. You suck at polar bear defense, dude. Like, I hate everything you're saying, and I don't feel good about it.
Right.
Like, you're way too casual about the largest land mammal, man-eating land mammal. You're too casual. You put your skis and you kind of hope. The answer is you're so tired, you just hope for the best.
Yeah.
So really, here's your polar bear defense. Hope and skis. You cross your skis.
Cross your fingers.
And you cross your fingers and you hope. That's a great polar bear defense.
Yeah.
Let's ditch the gun.
Yeah.
So when you actually shed weight as you're going, though?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's up there. It's so cold that we had.
How cold is it?
It can be minus 50, but then if it's windy, it's even worse. But so you sleep, you'll love this. Like when you sleep, because it's so humid in the Arctic, so all your perspiration at night, you can't just sleep in a sleeping bag, or else that just goes into the down, and over time it'll freeze into ice. So we would sleep in a 3-bag system. We'd sleep in a vapor barrier bag, which is just like essentially like a trash bag almost, like Gore-Tex bag. Then inside a minus 40 degree down sleeping bag. And then on top of that was a plus 20 down sleeping bag. So it's 3 bags you're in because it's so cold that you need all that warmth, but also when you're sleeping at night, your body, all the moisture gets trapped in the first layer and doesn't go through to the down bags later. And so it's super uncomfortable, and you have to have everything zipped up right up to your face. Even you can't have your nose sticking out at night because it'll get too cold. So you have a mask on as well.
It's super uncomfortable.
Yeah. And then in the morning,
like uncomfortable in what sense? Like it's just like, cause it's just your trash bag.
Yeah. It's comfortable because you're really tired and you just want to.
Now, how much are you sleeping? 8 hours?
Yeah, at the beginning.
And you lay out. You have a mat that you sleep on?
Yeah, sleeping pad.
Sleeping pad.
Yeah, because you have to be off the ground.
Because otherwise, too cold.
Yeah. But on that,
can you have a heater in your tent?
No. But
how about heating pads?
Well, the only thing we had for heat was our stove to make when we melt water, and so that's kind of a little luxury when you're making water that it's actually in, because we have it inside the tent with us on a board, and it's just like melting water. So that's like a little bit of heat that you can kind of, ooh, that's nice for a little while, but then you have to turn it off because that's a factor that fuel is very important. And so you can't just have stoves running all the time. And in fact, we close to the end of our trip, we were really worried if we had enough fuel. So we had to cut back on the amount of time we were.
You're such a nut.
Yeah.
Are you done doing that, or you think you'll do it again?
I'm done with that kind of long, probably Arctic Ocean trip.
How many times have you done that?
The North Pole just once, but South Pole I've been quite a few times.
Why? Because the North Pole's harder.
Because I guide people.
Because North Pole's harder because of the animals?
Yeah. No, just that it's a harder trip.
Do you see any?
And no one's done it since us, 2014.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
because nobody's as crazy.
Well,
have you seen? Did you see any Arctic wolves?
No, there's foxes.
But no wolves?
No.
Why?
I think because they live more on land and they hunt, small animals and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's foxes because they hunt Arctic hares.
Yeah, I guess so.
I would be shooting hares. Did you see any Arctic hares?
No hares.
Problem is you don't really see anything that you can
see
eat.
stuff.
You just see,
Yeah.
You really don't
see white
see
and you see ice and
there are no caribou, none of that stuff.
Yeah. Because it's basically just ice floating on the ocean. And so.
It is?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no land.
How do you get to it?
Well, we took a lot of flights to get to a place called Cape Discovery on the very north end of Ellesmere Island. And there's nothing there. It's just a feature, like a place on the map. And we flew up there, landed, and then they drop you off and say, see you later. We'll pick you up at hopefully at the North Pole in 2 months, more or less.
And how you have a satellite phone?
Yeah.
And you say, hey, we're here now. And who picks you up?
Well, that's part of the reason no one's done it since then is it's a company called Boric Air. It's a Canadian company that does all these flights up in the Arctic. And so we have a contract with them to fly you to the big start point and then a pickup. And the pickups, just getting there is expensive, but the pickup flight alone is $100,000. So
the pickup flight alone is $100,000.
So
you got to raise a lot of money for this.
Yeah, it was an expensive trip.
Who pays for this stuff?
Luckily, we had sponsorships, and we did a documentary on that, and it was on Animal Planet. So they were a big partner.
I didn't know that. If I'd known that, I would have watched it.
Yeah.
Where can I see the documentary?
It's on, it's on the Discovery Network, so they still play it.
Do you read? Do you obsess over Shackleton?
I've read all the books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you know kind of exactly what they're going on.
Yeah. In fact, where Shackleton's the Endurance, where that got stuck in the ice and then subsequently sank, that's very close to where me and my partner in Antarctica started our crossing on Berkner Island, which is just kind of out there in the Weddell Sea. And that's
polar bears out there?
No polar bears.
No.
Yeah. And the word Antarctic actually comes from Latin, meaning without bears.
Really?
Yeah. So
is that right?
Yeah. Arctic. Arctic is the English phrasing for with bears.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So bears have always been a terrifying presence up there. Where did the Inuit live?
In the north, in the Arctic.
In the Arctic, where the polar bears and everything else were. Yeah. When they lived on seals, they knew how to fish.
Yep.
Because a lot of the British expedition, the smart ones, actually just went to the Inuit and they're like, hey, what do we wear?
Yes.
What do we eat? And they were the ones that kind of fared okay.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of the original polar explorers, that's how they took a lot of stuff from locals.
I'm sure.
The Norwegians that did the first Greenland trips and North Pole trips, and they always looked really heavily at those kind of people and like what kind of clothes do they utilize and stuff like that.
And I think they wore 2 layers of caribou.
Yeah.
Do you know much about it?
Skins and the fur is great warmth.
Yeah.
It's
but
just
for
not
you too heavy.
It's not effective for we have too good of stuff now. Like we do. Very lightweight.
Is it as warm as?
Probably not, but more.
I would like to wear a polar bear coat.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it'd be very heavy.
Yeah.
Because if you ever hold a pelt's heavy.
Yes.
Like it's weight, it's pounds.
Less than you'd be probably attracting even more of them.
Probably, right? And then you'd be sweating.
They'd be looking at you like you're another polar bear. They may want to do something else to you besides just eat you.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be the ultimate insult. So you What made you write the book?
I just,
Did somebody tell you to write the book?
No, I kind of wanted to do it about our crossing of Antarctica years ago. And then I kind of shopped the idea around a little bit, and some of the publishers they're like, oh, it's a good story, but I don't know, maybe wait on it or something. And then when I did finish the Grand Slam by doing the North Pole, then I realized that's a book in itself, just kind of telling the story of the whole journey and, all the adventures. 'Cause it's not just about the trips. It's more like the crazy stuff that happened along the way and just like interesting stories and all that stuff. I didn't want to write just like, oh, then I went to Mount Everest and here's how hard it was and climb that. Because like there's so many books written about
so bring us through the top 3 craziest experiences.
The North Pole just in general with all that stuff. But I think a lot of the crazy kind of rescues and stuff over the years has been
Tell us about that.
I mean, luckily, people always ask you as a guide, like, if you had these accidents and stuff and you never want to answer, it's like knock on wood.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had some little stuff, but nothing much. But you find yourself when you spend enough time in the Himalayas, there is accidents or someone gets in an avalanche or something. You're around stuff all the time.
People die.
Yeah. So luckily, my friend Eric always calls me the luckiest unlucky guy in the world, because I've managed to be like very close to a lot of big tragedies.
Like the 2008.
Yeah, like K2 in 2008, I was supposed to be there climbing it, and there was a big collapse near the summit, and a lot of people died, friends of mine and stuff like that.
How many people?
I think that was like 10 or 12 people died.
So crazy, man.
But I've managed, luckily, to kind of skirt a lot of that
so
stuff.
talk about that, because you were supposed to go on that.
Yeah.
You were supposed to be there.
I went in 2006 to K2, and you
didn't make it to the summit,
No,
right?
we turned around because it was a really difficult year with weather and bad avalanche conditions and stuff. So I was pretty tired. I'd climbed 2 8,000 meter peaks in the month leading up to that. And, I was probably 35 or something, felt super strong. But after doing that, it was too much to like carry all the ropes and try to fix the rope, because it was a lot harder in those days where all the people did the work. Now more and more Sherpas are hired to like fix rope ahead of the climbers and stuff. So I just turned around and decided it wasn't the right year, and that was probably a good decision, because like 2 weeks later, I think like 4 Russians died in an avalanche on the route.
Your instincts, you were like, this doesn't feel right?
Just doesn't feel right.
What was it? Like, did you just not
just tired, knowing that me and my 3 friends that I was with were carrying all the rope to fix the kind of hardest section above the high camp, which is tons of work, but then having a 12-hour summit day and then coming down, I just could see in the future, basically.
You could.
Yeah.
Just from experience. That's where experience saves your life.
Yeah.
And listening to yourself. Right?
Yeah.
Like not putting your ego out there, but just not gambling, just being like, this doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
And
then later, a couple of years later, I was on another mountain, Gasherbrum 2. It's another 8,000 meter peak there in Pakistan. And we got kind of dragged into a big rescue because a group that was climbing up in front of us on trying to go to a high camp triggered a big avalanche, and like 4 people died right in front of us on this slope, and 2 guys were badly injured, and we had to go basically like triage, be the rescue of these climbers. And I had a Japanese climber in my tent that night that had broken ribs, a broken back, collapsed lung, and we had to keep him alive all night because the helicopter that we called in to try to get him off, it was a crazy story in itself. I mean, they were circling around. They asked us if we could make a heli temporary little pad, but they couldn't land. It was too high. And so they flew down the valley and said, we're going to try to just drop a litter and have it moving across the snow, because they can't hover above it.
What's a litter?
Like a rescue sled.
Yeah.
And if you can get them in there and package them, and then we're going to fly them off. But so we do all this work, me and a bunch of other climbers, and we're like ready. And we have the guy, Hiro, his name's Hirotaki. We have them all ready to go. And then the Pakistani helicopter comes and they open the side door, and the military guy is like, waving to us, and he's about to drop the sled out. And
a polar bear attacks him. Sorry, man.
He pushes out the sled,
Yeah.
and he forgot to attach the rope to it.
No. So
it just fell 2,000 feet down the mountain, and then they just like, sorry, and just closed the door and flew away. So we had to keep him alive all night, and then they said, all right, we'll try again tomorrow, but you got to bring him lower on the mountain.
You got to attach the fucking sled.
Yeah.
And did you save his life? Mm-hmm. And is he still
climbing?
We
got him down. He
stay in touch?
He ended up finishing all the 8,000 meter peaks. And
he did?
Yeah.
That's a badass.
Yeah.
Broke his back and everything. That was from the snow?
From the avalanche.
And you saw people die right in front of you?
Yes.
They just get sucked in under the snow? There's no way to survive
One of the guys on that group was alive. He was, I think, Austrian, I forget, or German. And he was alive, but one climber that was helping us with the rescue was a doctor. He was doing CPR on him, and then he just died right there, like in front of us.
What happened? He got crushed?
Just like internal injuries.
Because of the weight of the snow?
Yeah.
And you dug him out?
Yeah.
Fuck, dude. I mean,
those things are...
There's no way to survive an avalanche. What do you do?
I mean, you can. Ideally, you always want to like cover your face, because the problem is most people suffocate, because once that thing sets, once the snow sets, it's like cement. You can't move. However,
Dylan is covering his face right now. Claustrophobic, dude. So can't move.
You want to when it finally stops, you hope to have a little pocket of air in front of you. That's why you put your hands in front of you.
So it's not the actual snow that crushes you. It's the fact that you can't breathe.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah, but then you got a lot of snow on you.
Yes, but
you can't surf it.
You can sometimes. I've been in small ones before.
You have?
Yeah, and just kind of like stayed on top of it, and you can kind of swim and stay on top.
The way you talk about this shit is like, I went to Costco, we got some wine, and then I got bonbons. I like bonbons. That's how you talk.
Yeah.
Like, I guess you have to be that way. But you must be in crazy shape. You must be strong. Were you an athlete? Like, what was your sport?
I played football.
You did?
Yeah. I played 1 year in college, but then...
What, D1?
I played at East Tennessee State. It's like 1AA, or now FCS.
Yeah, what position?
Linebacker.
How much did you weigh then?
Only 215. I never could get...
It's respectful.
Bigger. Yeah.
It's respectful. But you're not... What do you weigh now?
Like 190.
And do you train for this? Do you work out? Do you lift weights, or you just don't? You don't have to. Really?
If I'm working a lot, like guiding, I stay in pretty good shape. But like I'm going to Everest in a month, so I've been doing more stuff recently.
You're going to Everest in a month.
Yeah.
You're back in.
Back in.
You just told me that you're like, coach. Nah, I'm just going to do this. And now you got to go back to fucking Everest. You're going to climb to the top, are you?
Yeah, hopefully.
And do you have to get acclimated at base camp?
We're guiding a blind climber. So, yeah.
A blind climber.
Yeah, a lot.
He just wants to get up there, not for the view, but because the air is a little thinner.
Exactly, yeah. Lonnie Bedwell. He's
Lonnie, seriously.
Yeah.
Like Lonnie. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a good climber, actually.
I bet he is.
I climbed Denali with him last spring. Oh, God. So that was cool.
He's amazing, but still, like, I don't know. Okay. I mean... I don't know. To each his own. I have no interest in doing it. I would never do it. It's just too. I don't know. I like hiking.
Yeah.
That's insanity. Just because you are really truly always. By the way, when you're at base camp, do you have to acclimate as long as a lot of people?
Yeah,
you do. Everybody does, right?
Yeah, everyone
you don't
does.
get used to it.
You do.
Do you get used to the cold? Are you better in the cold than most people? Do you think, or are you better at ignoring it?
I think, probably better ignoring it.
Because you know it's just uncomfortable. You're not going to die.
Yeah. But
what's the coldest you've ever been?
Probably on that Arctic, the North Pole.
You were just, for how long were you cold?
Just like, on a really bad day, cold, overcast, dark, and, minus 55 or whatever with wind chill.
You're just cold all the time?
It's cold, yeah.
When you're walking?
Yeah. mean, when you're remarkably, people think you wear more clothes when you ski to the poles, but you wear very little clothes. And the way you stay warm is you're in the shell stuff with wool underneath it, and you stay warm by being active. So your body temperature stays.
You got to be moving.
Yeah, you got to be skiing. And that's a super physical trip because you're pulling that sled up and over pressure ridges, and when we were swimming, open water, and everything else.
What did you say? What did you say? You're swimming?
Swimming in dry suits across, like if there's a big lead, the opening of ice where there's water, and you can't get around. I mean, some of them you just ski around. We'd look for.
So you put a dry suit on.
So you step in a dry suit.
What's that water temperature?
Well, it's just above freezing because it's like seawater.
So if you get in that water, you probably would die right away if it hit you.
Yeah, I mean, if you without a dry suit, you'd be in big trouble. And actually, I did fall in one time all the way up to my neck without this dry suit on. And then
I can't take this. I really can't, dude.
Yeah, that was scary too. Like thinking of.
Well, how did you get dry? Frostbite?
We were skiing across a lead, but it was actually frozen over just barely, like maybe a couple millimeters of ice. And so we're skiing, trying to get across it, and then long story short, the lead I was on just collapsed and I went in the water. And so it takes you a second to realize what's going on, but then I slowly swam to try to get to ice, but I didn't want to lose my skis because they're still on the bottom of your feet, and they're obviously important for the trip. So I was slowly, trying to swim over to the edge, got up on better ice, and then the first thing you have to do is take off all your outer layers because they'll freeze.
Yeah.
So we always had like a emergency bag of wool in our sleds. So I took everything off.
And now you have your shirt off.
Everything. And it's like probably like minus 30 or something. And so I put on the new wool and then just ran.
You dry off?
No, just running around and trying to keep your body temperature high. And then.
You didn't dry off?
No. And then in the end, I just put on all my outerwear again, and it was like real brittle because it was kind of frozen.
Because it froze.
And we just kept skiing that day.
Because you just break, the ice will come off.
Yeah.
But the ice is on the inside too now.
Yeah. But we had to keep skiing. Like everything's about time there. You can't afford to like just put up the tent and wait a day.
So you're just freezing your balls off.
Yeah.
Your body temperature must be.
Yeah, it was it was a rough ski day, and it took rough ski day. It took like 3 days for me to slowly dry out all that wool stuff by every night putting it in the top of the tent where it like kind of will slowly but surely thaw out. And
well, can't you just freeze it and then break it?
Yeah, I guess you could, but it's still.
No, you can't really.
So I don't know. Talking about all these adventures, that's the funny thing is something will just trigger another memory.
Yeah.
And there's like, oh yeah, this other time was like this crazy thing happened. So it's.
Is there a brand that you use that you believe in? Icebreaker? Is there a particular? You're probably sponsored.
Well, I wear a Norwegian company for wool, but on that trip I was wearing this company called Bergens of Norway for the outerwear. It's like it's made specifically for polar skiing, so it's like they were a sponsor.
What is it, like down this thick or something?
No, it's just like almost like Gore-Tex that you wear for bibs.
I'm cold, dude. I'm already cold. Do you wear a one suit? Is it a one suit though? Is it a onesie?
Two piece.
When you have to go to the bathroom,
yeah,
you got to pee. It's one thing. You got to take a dump. What do you do?
That's hard. It's a little chilly.
Yeah.
You just go. You got to be fast.
You're not showering.
No.
Not even a little.
No. That my record is 75 days without a shower on the Antarctica.
How'd you smell? Did you throw your clothes away?
I should have burned them, but
yeah.
But ironically, when we got done with that, we were at a party at the little like camp there, and the people that do the logistics, they threw us a cool party, and we're drinking beer and stuff. And one of the owners of the company is like, "Hey Ryan, we got a shower this year, and it's over there if you want to use it." I was like, "Oh, sounds good. I'll do it in a little bit." And I'm drinking more beer. He comes find me again. He's like, "Remember we got that shower?"
Because you finally, so bad.
Yeah, I didn't realize it. And then finally he comes and grabs me. He's like, "Ryan, you gotta go take a shower." And I was like, all right, I'll go do it.
Wow.
But
you're stunk.
Well, you're just so used to, like, just you and your partner living for.
Yeah, you must have smelled like a homeless person in the worst way. All due respect to the homeless. But that is like your body, because I've been hunting.
Yeah.
Like when I would hunt, I didn't take a shower for like 5 days, and God dang, do you stink. Like it's just
you don't realize it until you kind of get into a normal situation.
But I mean, to be that dirty for that long is crazy.
Well, ironically, Antarctica is a very clean place, right? It's just you're living in snow forever, but you're sweating and
it's the food you're eating probably, right? Kind of all the toxins.
Yeah.
And the food is made for you by a company or something?
It's specific to adventure stuff. They make.
So what is it? Protein?
A lot of protein.
Meat?
Yeah. Meat, pastas, rice, all kinds of stuff.
Meat, pastas, and rice.
Yeah.
And then butters, nut butters?
Butter, we would put big cubes of butter in our breakfast like each morning just for the fat.
So what would you eat for breakfast? Oatmeal?
Yeah, like oatmeal granola mixture with just milk, freeze-dried milk on it. So you pour hot water on it and it all gets good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it gets old.
Anything's good when you're fucking...
Yeah. If you're super hungry, everything's good.
Yeah, but it does get old, right?
Yeah. Same thing every day is...
There's no diet. Yeah, you're so out of your mind. Like, how long is the Everest trip going to be?
Probably 40 days.
Every time I'd call you, you'd be like, yeah, I can't. I'll be out of touch. You know, I was like, well, when are you going to do the podcast? You know, like, I got to go to Chile and I'll be, I was like, they fucking...
Well, I was on Antarctica for a month.
How old are you now?
49.
You're 49?
Yeah.
Oh, you look young. Oh, that's nuts.
Thank you.
You have all your hair?
I do. Luckily.
That's impressive. You're almost 50 years old.
Oh my God.
You don't look. I'm 56, dude. You don't look your age. That's crazy. That is a mop of hair. And you're not gray. And after putting yourself through all that insanity, you should look way older.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So, do you work out for staying in shape?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
mostly for fighting or what?
No, man. I'm not. I box and stuff, but I just work out because I don't know. I'm on stage for but it's not like you. You have to be in different kind of shape.
Probably.
Right. I mean, what's your workout? What do you do when you work out? How does one work out? It's got to be a lot of aerobic stuff.
Yeah. that North Pole trip, me and Eric, we had a phrase. We said we need to get old man strong. Like we would spend a lot of time with these big truck tires that we became our very good friends for several months. So we would drag them with a harness to mimic like pulling a sled.
Yeah.
We would carry them, and on like short sprints, we would pick them up and flip them. It was all about getting like strong. I always think of like an old, Polish
country
electrician or something.
Country strong. Yeah.
Because you got to pick stuff up and
you have to eat a lot, right?
And you have to eat a lot. So
you're eating anything you can just to put on calories.
Yeah.
It's not a diet. You're just going crazy.
You try to gain like 20 pounds before you go.
I was talking to this Navy SEAL. He was in SEAL Team 6. Like they all look like you actually. They're like he was big. He's probably about 220, but he wasn't shredded. He had some extra weight. He was the elite of the SEALs. He was actually in Black Squadron, which is like their clandestine unit. And the other Green Berets were teasing him about his dad bod. And then I was like, I'm not, do you train? He goes, yeah, I work out. But the guys that are really shredded end up getting hypothermia.
Right.
Like you freeze your balls off when you're doing the stuff we do.
Yeah.
So you want a little layer of fat.
Yeah.
And it's a type of body, or you don't want to be dieting and eating, no gluten. And then you get there and you're like, oh, I'm 5% body fat and I'm going to die.
Can't do it. But that's how you end up on those polar trips.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that. So you start at what weight? You end at what?
I think both of those real long polar trips, I probably, lost 25 to maybe 30 pounds throughout it. So when you finish, you're just like a wire, like all muscle and just in the best shape possible.
Yeah.
You've been skiing aerobically for, sometimes 10, 12 hours a day.
I bet you that's why you look so young. They say that that's probably the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
And you might be addicted to that too. Like the physical exercise can really get to you.
Yeah.
But you should also kill animals when you're there. Like, that's my new thing. I believe you should shoot hares and you should shoot seals and you should eat them.
I'll keep it in mind for next time.
Because you'll be super healthy. You'd suck on the blubber.
Yeah.
So you're walking and you're sucking the blubber. And you're, that's
chewing
what I've
on
decided.
a cube of penguin fat.
Eat a cube of penguin fat. I don't know if penguins would be good to eat.
That's what Shackleton's guys
really
basically lived on when they were, stuck on South Georgia Island. They lived off penguins for however long they were there.
Wow.
A month or something.
So not seals. Seals are
seals
hard to get.
Too. Seals, they lived off seals and penguins.
Hey, Dylan, bring up Inuit eating seals and seal meat. I wonder what that would be like, because it's all raw. They would eat it all raw. They'd eat the fish raw, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
it was the only option they had. So, but
and when you eat it raw, you probably get all the vitamins and stuff like that.
It's a lot of fat, a lot of warmth, and everything like that.
Yeah, let's see this. Man, they can deal with the cold,
Yeah.
Seal meat is an integral part of traditional Inuit style lifestyle. Yeah. The far north. Dude, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm insisting that would you be allowed to? Are there rules against killing? Nobody's looking.
No one's looking. Polar bears, there are rules though.
You can't shoot a polar bear.
You can't shoot them. But in that scenario, like that we ran into, it would have been okay.
Do they warn you about all this stuff?
No, there's no one really to warn you.
Yeah. Before you go?
Yeah.
Is there polar bear etiquette?
It's a very small community of people that try that. So there's only been, I think, 52 people ever to ski to the North Pole. From
52 in the world.
Yeah.
And when did you hear about it, and when did you decide you had to do it?
Yeah. The dream. Well, it all kind of ties in like in the book, for example, the 2008 K2, tragedy. I was going to be there. A friend of mine, a Norwegian girl, Cecilia Skog, who I'd met like a year before in the Himalayas. She was climbing there. She was a polar explorer already. She's the only woman to do the True Adventures Grand Slam.
What's her name?
Cecilia Skog.
Yeah, bring her up.
And
I've looked her up.
So she was at K2. I was going to be there as well.
I think it's SCOGG.
SKOG.
SKOG. She's very pretty.
Yeah.
Like, how old is she? Looks like Meg Ryan.
My age. She's like a year younger. Because so her husband unfortunately died on K2 in that 2008 trip. So then a couple of years later, we got involved. So she was my partner for quite a long time, and that's who
like a partner dating, or
yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
So she's who I did that crossing of Antarctica with.
What an amazing woman! Like there's just it's in your blood, man. You guys are a small fraternity. So like if there's one person that can understand you, it's her.
Yeah. So I was trying to remember why I started on that. It's because she had done the North Pole. So once we did the Antarctica crossing.
She's still doing it too.
Yeah. She's kind of, more mellow now. She doesn't really do.
She got kids?
Yeah. She has 2 kids. So, but since she had done the North Pole, I was like, well, now I'm in this game and I would like to do it. So I started trying to figure out how I could do it, and ended up me and my buddy Eric, decided let's go for it. So that's how we got to the North Pole. And that was the last piece I had to do that kind of Grand Slam thing. So I was totally committed to do it. And that, on our talk earlier, like what motivates you to get out of the tent every morning, that was part of it, was like, I'm going to get there no matter what, unless something,
Yeah. Well, you're a competitive spirit. Yeah. And you wanted to do something nobody else had done, really. Right.
So that's how I got out of this sleeping bag.
So go one more time. Explain what the Grand Slam is like for people.
So you climb the 7 summits, which is the highest peak on each continent, and then ski to the North Pole and the South Pole. There's another version that's even harder, that you also climb all the 8,000 meter peaks, which there's 14 of.
Don't tell me you want to do that next.
I've thought of it. I've climbed 5 of them, 5 different ones, multiple times, but I used to think of doing it as well. But my thing is, I'm more into like more mellow stuff now.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, are you, dude?
I want to get.
I love when people say that.
Well,
No, you're not.
I want to get me and that girl Cecilia. We had a sailboat together for like 2 years and sailed around, and so that's kind of my next thing is hopefully
sailing.
Yeah, I'd like to try to do it around the world.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my dream now.
That might be really cool.
Yeah.
And I would imagine you've made money. You make money with your guide.
Yeah.
It's pretty lucrative. Are you busy a lot?
Yeah. Definitely during 2020, we were not busy. We were shut for almost 2 years, year and a half. So that was brutal.
That is brutal. Yeah.
But yeah, we take people on these mountains and we're busy year round.
That's great because you get a lot of rich clients who want to do this. What's it cost to climb? Like if I said to you, all right, I want to go to Mount Everest. I want to go to the top of Mount Everest.
65,000.
It's going to cost me 65 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
minimum.
There's cheaper options, but the minimum is like 40.
Yeah, but you don't want to cut corners when you could die.
A lot of people do, surprisingly.
Yeah, well,
that's why you see a lot of stuff.
And if I said, all right, I said, all right, Ryan, I want to do this. I want to climb Mount Everest. What would you? And I want to do it. So go. What do I have to do? Get in shape. What do I have to do?
It'd be more climbing certain things beforehand.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what?
Just like recommended ones we'd say to do. These different mountains around.
Just so I get some experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's the biggest thing.
And I got to be in shape.
Got to be in shape, and you have to have. I mean, here's the thing: is more and more, some folks are going to Everest without a lot of experience because people are taking them, and so that's
money.
Yeah. So not that it's always the case, but quite a bit of the accidents and stuff you read on Everest now is people that probably shouldn't be there yet.
Yeah, it's not going to be with a guy like you. It's going to be like with a guy who's cutting corners or just saw an opportunity.
Yeah. They'll just say, "Okay, yeah, you've never climbed, but hey, it's here. We'll teach you this or whatever," and just take them and try to make it work. And then, unfortunately, that not having enough experience is a big factor of success there.
Do you need oxygen when you're climbing the mountain?
I've climbed a couple of those 8,000 meter peaks without oxygen, but I always use it on Everest because when you're guiding, you have to have it. I mean, it's too dangerous not to.
Yeah. Do the Sherpas use oxygen?
Yeah. On the summit day, yeah, they do.
On summit day. How cold is it up there?
Probably 25 minus, 30 minus.
And how long do you stay up there?
On the top, it all depends on what the weather's doing. I've sat up there for a half an hour before, and I've got there and took one picture and turned around. Just depends on what the weather's doing.
Took one picture and turned around.
I think
what's left for you, man? Now that you've done this, you've written this book.
I don't know. Like the sailing dream is definitely.
So you could hang it up for a sail.
Well, my thought is I can be running my business with help from people that work for me and be kind of anywhere really.
Yeah.
And so I always thought if I was on a boat part of the year, not like living on it all the time, but, as long as I can check in and manage things from a Wi-Fi connection every now and then, that would be enough.
Nice.
And just adventure.
What kind of boat would you get?
Hopefully like a 40-foot or 45-foot sailboat.
That's nice.
Yeah.
What are you prepared to spend on a sailboat? Because they're not cheap.
I know.
Bring up 45-foot sailboat. I want to see what they cost.
Well,
because I looked at boats and I was like, oh shit.
New ones are very expensive. But
like you can spend $1 million.
Yeah,
on
you
them.
can for sure.
Yeah.
But no, I would probably.
That's
have
what you buy a house for. So.
Yeah, I'd get a one that's been used. And
my buddy used to sail boats for rich people on the winter route, and he got caught in a storm.
Yeah.
Had to tie himself to just keep himself from hitting the rocks, and it was nuts, man. He almost died.
Yeah, it's the ocean is a.
No, that's not what you'd buy. You'd buy a bigger one, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, they're you
and a sailboat. You want a sailboat?
Yeah.
It's got to be tough.
Well, it's more like.
Do you know how to sail?
That's the event. Yeah. I've got my
captain's license,
bareboat license, and me and Cecilia had a boat for
How long did you guys date?
4 years, maybe. Yeah.
She sounds like a badass. Where's she from?
Norway.
Yeah, she just seems like a really unique human being.
Yeah, she is.
Are there any other women like that?
Yeah.
'Cause I remember looking her up and I was like, she was on
more and more now. There's like a lot of females are getting into this stuff and trying to do, break records and climb mountains and all. It's getting more and more mixed as opposed to, I always said, like when I was first in the Himalayas, it was all guys. And you'd be there for a month at a base camp, and if there was one girl there, she was like the
hottest thing.
Yeah,
didn't matter if she had a hoof and a horn.
So I always say, like, when they got out of their tent in the morning, it would be like a bunch of meerkats. Like all the guys get up and just try to like look and see if they can get and you happen to try to run into them accidentally. Of course. Hey, how are you? But now I would say like 15-20% is females.
Wow.
In these mountains.
Yeah, you're definitely not getting laid on the North Pole. There's not a lot of
opportunity there.
No. Even if you are with your girl in that kind of weather, I mean, I guess, do you sleep in the same sleeping bag for warmth?
No.
You don't. You can't.
No. Yeah,
it's not sexy time when you stink.
You're just on.
And you haven't taken a shower.
It's all business at that point.
Yeah.
Just get done with the trip.
Keep it, dude. I think you're going to like sailing a lot more.
Yeah. Probably.
Well, thanks for doing this, man. This was wild. Book, An American's Grand Slam. And what do you think of the guy on Netflix who climbed all those peaks? What was that, a trick?
No, I mean...
I like I can already tell you.
It was a very cool feat.
He's a Gurkha.
Yeah. I know him, and he's good.
He's a macho guy. Seems like a tough
climber,
guy.
Strong climber. But now it's like he's kind of morphed into he has a guide service now, so it's like he's kind of competition now. So.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. So we're cordial in passing and stuff, but
But you're too competitive to be friends with. The quiet competitor. Yeah. But he knows his shit. That was a pretty crazy feat to do endurance wise.
Yeah. But it's actually had a big effect on that world because now suddenly everyone's trying to like replicate that.
Yeah, of course.
They're like, oh, I should just climb all of them in a year.
It kind of misses the point sometimes, right? Like I feel like that's sometimes you just miss the point. Sometimes like you're doing something to be, it's like, let me see how fast I can do this. But I don't know that climbing a mountain like that was ever about getting there first. Right. It might be about the entire experience. I don't know that.
That's what it used to be. Now it's changing. People trying to go fast. Well, it becomes
something that people like me watch because we don't know.
Right.
And so it's interesting because you can do these things that are pretty extraordinary, but it's still a stunt.
Yeah.
And it'll make you popular. But I can understand how people who've been in the game as long as you have would go, kind of like, well, it's kind of not why I did it.
Yeah.
A lot of people got into stand-up, and I've been doing it for a long time, and some people started treating it like a sport.
Right.
And started talking about it like it was a sport. He did 20 specials, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck how many specials he did. That's not the point.
Yeah.
Like, how good were they? And, like, how original. And also, I don't care. And also, don't come into my sacred space and turn this into some kind of a competition where no one is competing at that sport.
Right.
That bothers me.
It's the same, like the community. Yeah. If you've been in it a long time, it's like you see changes, you see the new people coming in and how they're doing things. And I'm sure it's like, you have the old,
it's also a little dangerous
folks. They're like, this guy's, or I don't know what they're trying to do. And
because you're suspicious of the motivation.
Yeah.
Sometimes like, I understand that. It's like, hold on, first of all, it might be dangerous.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's always dangerous, but also second of all, I understand that it's hard to put your finger on it, but it somehow feels uneasy to you. It somehow feels commercial. It somehow feels like a little dirty.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is, but I understand that feeling. It's what I get from, I guess I can understand without it. Sometimes you don't know how to put your finger on something or how to define it, but I can understand how a guy like you who's been in the game so long, to take nothing away from this guy at all, because he's amazing, but I can understand how it just sits a little uneasy.
Yeah. Yeah. And not talking about him specifically or anything, but there's a lot of, people tweak the definitions of things now to be the first or the fastest.
That drives me nuts.
Yeah. So
it's a little bit like I would say sometimes you can see a guy. This guy has this crazy vertical leap. He can jump 50 inches or something, and then you'll see guys in the combines who can do astronomical things. It doesn't mean they're a great football player.
Right.
It doesn't translate necessarily in the game of basketball. Right. It's a little bit like Susan Sontag used to always say that she was a cultural critic. And she'd say, if you're looking at art and you're looking at it through the screen or the scope of what's going on psychologically with the artist and what's behind the art, there's room for that.
Yeah.
But if it gets in the way of the actual art, which is supposed to have an effect emotionally and viscerally on you, because it's beautiful,
right,
then you're missing the point. Maybe that's kind of like, so when something becomes spectacle.
Yeah. And a lot of it's because of social media. It's changed everything. The new trend I've noticed is people that, go do a lot of hard mountains, but they're doing it with a lot of support, much more support these days than it used to be, and don't really have a ton of experience. They are following Sherpas up things. Then suddenly, because they have a big Instagram following, they're like advertising that they're leading a trip somewhere, like as a guide or whatever. And so
that'll drive you nuts.
Yeah,
it's also dangerous,
but also like it works, because suddenly people have, I've got 15 people doing a Everest base camp trek or something like that, which is great. But, if something actually happens,
that's the problem. Like, look, there are plenty of people that become very famous, whether it's in comedy, whether it's whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And there are people that can fill a room full of, they can sell 10,000 tickets, but that doesn't mean that they are a comic or have the ability it doesn't mean that their expression is original enough to merit that in an old school sense of the word. They just became popular.
Right.
Because enough eyeballs were watching them because they were good at that.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of it. And that's fine if it's comedy. It's not fine if you're leading an exhibition up a mountain where people could die.
Right.
Because if something goes wrong, like you said, if you don't have that experience, you can't,
you can't fake that part.
Yeah, and your following on social media isn't coming to get you.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks for doing this, bro. It took us a while to get you on, but I'm glad you did. And the book's called An American's Grand Slam. It's a really good book. And I kept reading it. And when I was on, I'd be lying there reading it, and my wife would be like, "What are you doing?" Because I'd be like, "Jesus." I'd be like, this guy's crazy. I kept doing that. This guy's fucking crazy. So it's really good, man.
Awesome.
This has been the Bryan Callen Show. I hope you learned everything. And most importantly, you learned that climbing mountains or crossing the North Pole is not for you, and it's not for anyone, including the guy to my right.
And get better at your polar bear defense.
Fuck yeah.
Bryan